Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Lonely Wrist. Sitting in front of me is Justin Walters from Marin and Alterum. What's up, brother?
How's it going?
It's going. I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. I'm glad to finally get you on. It's been a
Yeah,
been a been a long pursuit of trying to get you here.
yeah. It's been a long time since we've talked to each other too. It's almost been like a year, I think,
Yeah,
since the
I'd say
last
that's
time
about
we connected.
I'd say that's about so. I mean, I still see you're doing awesome things, so
Trying to, trying to stay busy, which is good.
yeah, and yeah, we met in San Francisco, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of your brand, and
Yeah,
specifically Marin,
yeah.
and I was really impressed with your product, your presentation, just the build quality, and really what you get for the money. I'm a tool watch guy at heart,
hmm
and I was particularly impressed, so much so that I purchased one.
Yeah,
So, which
that's
I don't
right.
think I purchased anything else at San Francisco. So.
That's right. You came back a couple times.
I did, I
I remember
did, I
that.
did.
Yep.
And
You were like, "All right, one more look, one more look."
yeah, yeah, my wife was there with me, and I literally we had committed to do kind of like a dual trip. Like I pitched it to her as like, "Hey, I'm going to San Francisco and I'm taking you and I'm gonna do a few things at the watch event, but and so the first day I like went around to all the brands and was like, "All right, I'm gonna buy a watch. I'm not sure what, da 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 da." And then
Yeah.
I finally convinced her to like because it was only supposed to be one day of watch stuff. The rest of the time was
hmm
supposed to be, you know,
Vacationing.
relationship time. Yeah, the
Yeah.
relationship, like spending time together and all this. And so thankfully she let me come back and yeah, yeah.
San Francisco was
Um,
cool. I enjoyed San Francisco. It was a good time. That was my first show we did, um, and we had a great time. Like it kind of ruined the expectation for me a little bit because we sold so many, and then I went to another show and I didn't do so well, and I was like, this sucks. But San Francisco
yeah,
was good.
yeah. It's weird. So I've noticed too, and from because I've done the New York, I've done the Chicago, I've
hmm
done the San Francisco twice, and it seems that the New York and the San Francisco are the big sellers. So if you did Chicago as your other one, then Chicago is a hard one.
It was actually
Um,
New York,
oh really?
dude. Yeah, we did New York at the end of the year last year in October. I think it was. I think it was October. Um, wait, no. Yeah, it was October because we did the show for 2 days and we didn't sell a single watch.
My
It was just
gosh.
we went out there and educated a bunch of people on the brand, but we didn't sell a single watch, which was crazy. And so I was like, man, I was kind of sour after that. But I
Wow.
love Worn and Wound, and we're gonna do more shows with them. But yeah, we left. We went to um, New York, and then straight from there, I went to Hong Kong to launch the other brand, Alterum. So it's kind of a busy weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So this is going to be a first for us because we have two brands we're going to be talking about, Marin and Alterum. I had
Yeah.
never heard of Alterum until I'm sorry to say, as knowledgeable as I try to
Well,
be.
it's a very small brand, so like Marin is, Alterum is just me as well. So yeah, I understand that it's hard to get the views out there on this watch, and we've launched three so far, so but the same model, different variations.
It's
So
a
yeah,
badass little watch. I mean, it's
thank you.
I'll definitely link, both of his brands in the description here. But I
Yeah,
mean, to see the execution on a world timer like that is awesome. So
thank
it's
you.
very
I appreciate
creative.
that.
Um, and I saw, I was going through the website trying to do some research here,
Yeah.
and saw your inspiration, board and everything, and I was like,
hmm
man, this is kind of cool. So,
Yeah, it was
um,
interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people are inspired by like architecture and different things, but For me, it was just about making something that looked different. I love Braun. I love the brand Braun, and I love their watches, and I have one, and I wanted it. There wasn't something on the market that felt luxurious as like a minimalist piece. So this was kind of the idea with Alterum, was to make something minimalist that really was serious. So I think we
Yeah.
did a good job. I think so.
I think you did an awesome execution. I love the watch. Is there only 50 or so of them in existence? Like how
So
many?
there were 100. So this is the first world timer. This is
Yeah.
like the reference one that we did, and we sold out of these in about 2 weeks um, prior to launch, and so that was really amazing. I did not realize that that would happen at all. And then we just launched the gold PVD version, the LA, and we're gonna have some news coming up with that soon. We're working on
Oh.
some good stuff. We did the LA version, and then we did the New York edition, which is the black PVD with like a gilt dial and gold crowns. So really cool.
And what was it about like, usually you don't see brands kick off, obviously if you look at Marin, right? We're trying to juggle these two. You have a
Yeah.
practical tool watch,
Yep.
very sporty. And then I mean the Alterum watch is non-debatably sporty as well, but in a world timer
Yeah.
complication, which, usually you don't see brands shoot after a world timer for their first watch.
Yeah. The first design. So that's funny about these two brands is I started working on Alterum about 10 years ago, um, and did the design work, and had this vision of what it could be, and then it just kind of died. Like I couldn't find the right people. I didn't know anybody in the industry at that time. I was living in Florida and didn't know anybody. I worked for Honeywell at the time, and I was just kind of designing something I thought was cool, and it sat there for like 10, like, well, it sat there for about 8 years until Wayco messaged me, and he was like, "Hey, I've got this project that we're working on. It's kind of an incubator system thing that, we want to help small brands kind of be able to launch if they don't have the right, resources." But so we did that. That's like another story we can get into. But I designed the Alterum, and then I went back to Marin because I wanted a tool watch. I've got these two separate kind of design brains. I've got the dressy architecture side, and then I have the tool watch side. Like, you go get dirty and muddy and scratch it up and whatever. Kind of more the old school Rolexy side
Yeah.
of design. And so I think these two brands are exactly like who I am, or who I want
Polar
to be.
op
You know what I mean?
polar opposites. No pun intended.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. But it's like, it's funny because when I design a watch, it's more about me designing something that it's more about me designing a product that, man, I don't even know how to describe this. This is really hard for me to describe because it's like, I've been thinking about this concept of when I put something on, when I put a watch on, I want to become this person. I think we all do it, and I do it with shoes a lot too. Like I have a pair of Vans, and it's like, if I wear my Vans, I need to look like, it's kind of poserish, but it's like I need to look like I'm skating. You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah,
skateboarder. But I grew up skateboarding, so it's like it's just a style
sure.
thing. It's just
Yeah,
like, who do I want to be today? You know?
I don't I grew up skateboarding, and to be fair, I still wear Lakais.
Dude,
So
Lakai's a
like the
cool
shoe.
brand.
Yeah, dude, they're awesome. They're so
Lakai's
comfortable.
cool.
Like,
The girl I used to work for Girl. The
oh,
people
you
that kind
did?
of started Lakai, yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit, I didn't know that. The Krail
Yeah.
Tap. Is that? I think that's who.
The Crowd Tap guys, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Super
Yeah,
cool
I
brand.
did a board design for Sean Malto.
Oh
This
wow.
is when I was living in Kansas City, and he was the pro in Kansas City. I mean, he was already with Girl, and so I was like, I need to do a board for Sean, and it happened, which was amazing.
He's one of the very few skaters that like I since I don't skate anymore because I'm getting old. Like I still follow Sean online, and I mean he's still crushing it, still crushing
He's
it.
crazy. He's
Yes.
crazy. His style is just crazy. I mean, he doesn't do crazy, tricks, but he's just so smooth.
Yeah, I mean he's not like throwing himself down like El Toro or something like
Right,
huge sets of
exactly.
stairs, but he's just I mean he's just crushing, rails and mani pads, and I mean
He's
just
great.
all the yeah
He was
yeah.
who I looked up to when I was skating. And I actually got to skate his like private park. I had friends that were friends of his, and we'd go and skate with him sometimes. So amazing skate park. Amazing.
Totally.
Indoor
I
skate park. It was crazy.
is it the barracks spot or is that what you're talking about or
No, but he had the people that built the barracks build one for him in Kansas City. I think it's
oh wow
still his private park, or maybe he sold it or something because now he lives in LA. But it was an insane skate park,
wow
really fun.
didn't didn't know he had his own little skate park. I guess that's
It's
probably
hidden.
probably the way he preferred to keep it.
It's secret. Yeah, it's a secret. It's Sean's secret skate park.
Let's talk.
That was cool.
So I'm gonna see if I can juggle between the two. Tell me about like the philosophy behind Marin. I
Hmm.
know, and I took some of the questions from your website, and you talk about building watches for a journey.
Yeah,
And talking about like, the things that you incur on the way to your destination. So like tell us
yeah,
about the philosophy of Marin and tell us why you decided to kind of build a watch brand.
yeah. So Marin's philosophy is we are built for the journey, and that doesn't necessarily mean we need to covet these items. Like I designed a watch to be used, and I wanted. I didn't want to take like I wanted to take like an old Rolex approach. Like one of my favorite watches was the 16610, which is this is heavily inspired by, and the Seiko, the old Seiko divers. I don't know reference numbers.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
and so I wanted to blend that together and create something that was a little more, um, a little bit better built than Seiko, or at least the Seiko that I had that I knew. Um, and but wasn't quite as expensive as Rolex. And so I wanted to kind of mesh these brands together and make something. And a lot of people ask me like, what about the name? Where'd the name come from? And I was like, honestly, I liked the word marine and I took the E off. And I was like, Marin, okay, that sounds cool. It's not like super, it doesn't really have, I mean, it didn't have a direction when I first came up with the name. I didn't know that Marin County was a thing or Marin County. And I also didn't know that in French it meant of the sea. So
Oh wow.
it kind of fit, but my whole philosophy was it needed to be centered on the dial. It needed to look good. It needed to have like 5 or 7 letters, something that was a little offset, but um, symmetrical. So literally why I picked the name. It wasn't anything special. It didn't mean anything to me. It was just something that I didn't want to put my name on it or anything. So something that could be something in the future.
It
So
it makes sense and yeah, I didn't even think about it at first. But it's a solid name. I mean,
cool
it
name.
it yeah, it it to me it feels like the name is the utility as well in a weird way. Like
Mhm.
I can't think of it as being like a dress watch.
Right.
I mean maybe because I know the brand and I've seen your watches, but I can't ever imagine a watch being called a Marin or a skin diver, like what, obviously, hence I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about right now, but without having utility being a Marin watch. Like you have to just stick with
Yeah.
sports watches now, I think at that point. So,
That's exactly where we want to go. Like we want to stay in this. I don't plan on making dress watches. I don't plan on making ultra complicated watches. It's something I want. I want these to be used, and the goal is to get them scratched up. And you know, I'm really excited to see what these look like in like 10 years or 20 years, however long they last. Hopefully they last longer than that and people are still wearing them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the goal is to just keep it on your wrist. It's not something that what Rolex used to be this. I mean, I love Rolex. Um, this brand that was like this tool watch brand. Right now they just
Sure.
make jewelry pretty much.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Um, but like Rolex early 90s. I mean, back in the day, for sure, Rolex was making like these amazing pieces, but like the early 90s period was really cool. They started getting like, I mean, it was Rolex.
Right.
Can't say shit about Rolex.
You can, but
I mean,
I
you
don't, I
can,
don't,
but
I can't
they're
promise you
doing it
won't be
right.
canceled.
Yeah, they're gonna cancel me.
I,
I did
dude,
do an ad one time that was aimed towards Rolex, and a lot of people like messaged me. They were like, "You're gonna get in trouble if you do this," and it was some service ad that I did, and it was like, you could send your watch to Switzerland and it'll be gone for 6 months, or you can send it to us and it'll be done in a week. And then it was like the Rolex kind of, you know, well, this person would be, if you were doing this, you'd be wearing a Marin or something like that, or
No, no.
Rolex.
What you should do is you should try and take a page out of the Patek marketing book where you're like, oh, you take care of it, and then you pass it down. But you're like, no,
Yeah,
you should beat the shit out of it, and then you pass it down for them to beat the shit out of. You know?
exactly. That's what watches are for,
Yep.
except
I
for
would.
some watches. That's what some watches are for.
Yeah, yeah. I would say. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Um, I want to talk about, obviously not only it being a tool watch, but when you first got the idea for the skin diver, did you automatically know that you wanted to do a diver, or like, how did you land on, okay, cool, I'm going to do a diver's watch?
Hmm.
And then, obviously when you have divers watches kind of in mind, you have like a kind of a pre-built-in utility. Like you can't really,
Yeah.
it's not like you're seeing people who are doing like world timer diver watches. They do exist,
Hmm.
but that's not the primary utility. So how did you
Right.
decide, okay, cool, we're just going to jump into a diver, let alone a skin diver? Um, and how did you land on that kind of design functionality?
So, trying to think back. I think the first idea I had to make I mean, I bought this Seiko, and this is where it all begins. I bought this Seiko dive watch, and it was from the 90s, I believe, or early 2000s, and it was like faded, and I wore it on a NATO strap every day for like 5 years. This was when I was in Florida, and the dial kind of actually started turning colors as well. It started like ghosting a little bit,
Yeah, yeah.
and my NATO strap was just destroyed. I mean, it wasn't destroyed. The color of it was just gone. It turned to like a khaki, and I bought it when it was like a dark tan color, and it just the sun and the salt just wore it away. But I wore that thing like every single day, and I used it to time my lunch breaks at work. And I was like, this is like really simple. Anybody can use a dive watch. Not everyone understands chronographs, and chronographs are hard to see, and they're kind of. I mean, I love chronographs, but like they're not super utilitarian.
Definitely not.
And the dive watch just made sense to be the first to produce, and so I did this like Seiko inspired dial, um, and then I did this weird kind of big long line on the bezel because my lunch breaks were like 30 minutes, but everything was over 15 minutes. So I was like, who just timed something for like 10 minutes? I mean, you don't even
Right,
need
right, right,
a
right.
dive
Yeah.
watch. So that's why I did that on the bezel. But yeah, dive watch just seemed like the first. I mean, everyone does a dive watch first, I think. It's kind of your step in, right?
Yeah, maybe. You either see people work from like a subsection of like, okay, they're gonna start off doing sports watches, then they'll work their way backwards into dress watches. Like you generally will never see somebody start off with a dress watch and then go backwards into a sport watch.
Right.
because just in terms of like it's just more challenging execution. I
Hmm.
talked to a lot of designers and they're like, oh, I don't want to dip my feet in the dress watches. I just can't do it, and
It's tough. It really
it,
is.
and yeah, so yeah, I mean, you either start at either side of the sandbox and you work your
Hmm.
way inwards. I would say divers are definitely the most popular, because if you look at some of the most iconic watches in the world, I mean, they're all dive watches,
Yeah.
so there is that just nostalgia wrapped around, and
Right.
so yeah, I
Good
feel,
stories, man. Like
yeah,
a lot of those tool watches have good stories.
I
So
I,
that was
I would
that was another reason.
I would certainly agree. So, let's see if we can try and pivot into Alterum.
Yeah.
And what I read about the brand was you said that you were working at Honeywell, which
Yeah.
was weird because whenever I mean, you even addressed this in the article or the about page, like Honeywell doesn't make watches, but
No.
you said something about like, was it your boss that had a Longines Comet that kind of
Yes.
like you were stoked on
Yes.
and
The Longines
th-
Comet, dude, was a badass watch. And I think they should come back out with it because it's so cool. It would, I mean, it would kill today for Longines to redo that watch. But that was kind of my first introduction into like these weird, complicated disc kind of style watches. And with Alterum, I was like, okay, let's do something flat. The goal was to keep it thin. Um, and yeah, I was working for Honeywell at the time, so I started designing this. Uh, dude, I should show you. I should send you some of the drawings I did with this or for
sure.
this first.
Yeah, yeah.
They're god awful. They're horrible. And I don't really draw. I draw on Illustrator with like shapes and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, this it's it's kind of funny how this came about, but yeah, it's he had this Longines Comet, and this was when I was first getting into watches. And I didn't really know much, and then I started learning through other watchmakers that worked at Honeywell, like kind of how watches were put together and built, and that got me introduced into Icopod and Mark Newson, and it kind of just went from there. I finished the design pretty quickly, but then I had to like kind of tweak it a little bit and make it better. It was very the first watch wasn't a world timer; it was a dive watch for Alterra, and it was quartz. And I was trying to get Casio or yeah Casio to help build me a module where you have your dive watch, right? It has a pusher, and you push this pusher, and the bezel automatically rotates to where your minute hand is, and then your
Oh
dive
wow,
time starts. And then you
that'd be
push it again, and it
badass.
resets back to zero. It would be sick.
Yeah,
It'd be so cool. I still want to
yeah.
do it, but I've got no money. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming. How did that? So what did Casio say? Like you kind of left us on the
I got
cliffhanger
no
there. Like,
response.
oh, okay. So you're a concept. You pitched it to Casio and just never heard from them.
Yeah, you're like, who the fuck is
Got
this guy?
Yeah. Well, it's still a
I'm
cool
like,
idea, and
it's
thankfully
dude. It
Casio
would be
hasn't
awesome. It would
hasn't
be
done it yet.
awesome to do this. Like even Tag could do something like this. Um, like I also pitched it to Tag for their Aqua Racer. I think that'd be something cool because some of their watches are quartz, I believe.
Yeah.
So it'd be a really cool quartz Aqua Racer
You should pitch it to
diver.
Wes if you haven't already.
I
Well, I'm
should.
sure I'm sure Wes will know how to make it work or
I should
something.
actually. I really should. Because it's
Yeah.
been an
No.
idea that's in my head. It's been there for a long time. And then I kind of backtracked and kind of went to this world timer idea and started messing with the disc layout and yeah, and then it turned into this, which was really cool. Super happy with it. If you can see it,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely link everybody. I mean, you guys have to check this out. I mean, it is beautiful, beautiful watch.
Appreciate that.
Um, and then yeah, in terms of uh, so for I mean, I generally don't think about Honeywell as a watchmaker, and you know the way that you just made it sound like you made it sound like there was a bunch of watch designers there. You know, is that
There's a bunch of
accurate?
watchmakers there.
Okay, okay.
They don't put watches together. They work
They do
on
like instruments.
class, yeah, classified projects.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
That's how I ended
Uh,
up at the lab, actually. Because I my day job is I work at Los Alamos National Lab, and that's how I kind of was introduced to the lab here in New Mexico.
oh wow. Los
Hmm.
Alamos. That's isn't that where they did the bomb site thing?
Yeah,
Like
the
the
Manhattan Project. That's the Oppenheimer.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They were filming out here for a little while.
Damn. That's pretty
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I
yeah,
saw that
it's
movie
cool.
and then I started went back and did some research, you know, because in the movie you see him kind of like, you know, like getting the town together because he owned Oppenheimer like owned that land apparently,
Yeah.
and then he builds Los Alamos like all around it, which is kind of a cool
Hmm.
little side story. Um,
It's cool. Like I love like World War II history and kind of like secret history and CIA stuff and yeah. So it's cool working there. It's interesting. So I mean it's you know, it's way more boring than you think. But um yeah, so that got me out here into the desert and then Marin came about during COVID, which is interesting.
yeah, I would never expect a dive watch brand to come out of New Mexico, New Mexico.
Yeah, right?
So,
We actually have dive shops here. We do
really?
like yeah, we do high altitude diving. I'm not a diver, but I like snorkeling and whatever, and just staying close to the surface
Yeah, yeah,
because it hurts my ears. I'm a little baby when it comes to water.
sure, sure.
Um, but yeah, we've got some really pretty high alpine lakes and a couple lakes on the backside of some mountains. When I visited last year, I did a it's called Wheeler Peak, and it's the tallest mountain in New Mexico. It's 13.1. It's not anything to boast about. It takes like 4 hours. But I went down the backside and camped, set up a camp, and just kind of snorkeled around the water up there. That was cold.
I,
That was cold.
yeah, I live in Vegas and yeah, I mean we have obviously a little bit of water around us, but
Hmm.
um I think I've drove through Mexico at least like once and I don't remember ever seeing any water.
I mean, you
Um
got to find it. You got to search
yeah.
for it.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
it's liquid gold out here. I mean, you live in the desert. That's what it is. It's hard to find. We also have the blue hole, which is really cool. It's like 82 feet deep hole, a spring-fed hole. That's the water's like 62, I think, year round. But it's super
Okay.
clear and it's awesome. A lot of people dive there.
Makes sense.
Yeah, not
Um
me though.
yeah, no, I mean yeah, no water for me. Thank you. Um Let's see if we can jump back into to Marin and
Yep.
and then not only that too, but your design background. I've noticed
Mhm.
between the two watches, um, they're very minimalist. You know,
Yeah.
like that you follow very minimalist design aesthetics and how important is that for you? I mean, it seems like you're one of those form follow function designers. Um, so do you ever see yourself kind of ramping up in terms of kind of the design, or do you just plan to kind of do the less is more addition by subtraction type of
Mhm.
design principles?
I think it depends on the product, really. It depends on, what it is that I'm designing. Because I've designed a couple of things. I've designed chairs. I've done none that were made. Like I haven't
Right.
made any money off anything, but I've designed a couple more watches, and I think legibility is the big thing for me.
Yeah.
I have to be able to read it, and even like this Rolex that I have, it's kind of hard to read, and so that comes first when I design something. You got to be able to like visually see the dial or visually see what it is. Um, that's that's a little difficult for me to answer. Yeah, it just depends on um the thing I want to design. I think now what I think about more than I think about the piece is the space that it's in. And this was big with Alterum because I think Alterum is this minimalist brand, and so is Marin. Like the goal is to keep it simple. Designing something simple is really hard, and I don't think I'm saying I'm designing something simple, but minimalist design. And I hate that word. I hate minimalist design,
Sorry,
but
that's my word, not yours.
no, 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 it's fine. Like I get it. Like we don't have a better word for it, but it's I think of the space that it's in more than I think of the product itself because people are going to be wearing fancy things and whatever, and I want this to stand out. And so it has to be simple. It has to be clear. It has to be clean. And yeah, with Marin, it was just kind of a dive watch needs to be easily read. Even when you're like you don't have your glasses and you're like, what time is it? You could still read it.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
was the main thing. It was just make it legible. And then if you make it legible, you start taking things away from, what's not needed. And you start getting rid of, flashy stuff and, just make it, just, I'm not going to say dumbing it down, but just getting rid of the nonsense.
Well, you also mentioned brands like Icopod.
Yeah.
I read something about Resonance. You referenced Resonance, Leica, and
Yeah.
then you obviously earlier in the podcast talked about Braun,
Hmm.
as some influential brands to your now branded identity between not only Marin but Alterum.
Hmm.
What
Apple's in there
specifically?
as well.
Yeah, yeah, I did see that. Apple, you had the Guggenheim. I mean, you had a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, what what specifically about, and we could just to make it easier, just stick with the watch brand.
Hmm.
What specifically about those designs kind of spoke to you?
So when it comes to Icopod, it was kind of ahead of its time. Icopod was. And I don't know if for me, that's why it kind of failed a little bit. It was like too out there. It was like, I don't know. It was just, I think it was ahead of its time for me. But I loved the discs. I loved the disc concept that, Mark Newson came up with. And it was really simple designs. And the case shapes were really weird. And so for that, it was, the disc dial. For Leica, it was the aluminum. And this is the same with Apple. It was the aluminum case that they use. Um, and I mentioned this, it's with when I'm designing Alterum, I'm usually thinking about materials more than I'm thinking about design. And I want this material to stand out more than it is a watch. It needs to be beautiful. You want to wear it. Um, and so that's first for me. I was talking to um, Alfred Chan when I was in Hong Kong, and he was like, what do you think of first when you design something? And for me, it's the material. That's number one with Alterum. With Marin, it's legibility. And so I want these materials to be beautiful as well as the actual piece. So yeah, for Leica, it was just they make the most beautiful camera bodies ever. Um, and so Apple makes beautiful products. That's why we buy them all. Like
Sure.
we can't deny that they're just amazing. Even their watches are. Not enough people talk about their watch design. They talk about the functionality, but I don't think they get enough credit when people talk about their watch design. They make beautiful pieces of, you know, I
Consumer
don't remember what I was
wearables.
gonna say. Beautiful things.
Consumer tech.
Yeah, they make. I mean, they're gorgeous. And so, yeah, there's just different things that these companies kind of bring to me. Like Vans was a big one. Vans has had like this same uh, shoe design for like 60 years or 70 years or how long they've been around. I think it was like 1962 they were they came out. Which is just incredible. Like you design something that simple, it'll last.
I noticed too, if you look at and Vans is a great example, and I don't think they get enough kind of credit, but they really attach themselves to culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Skateboard
Yeah.
culture, and now it's synonymous with that culture. Like you cannot, it's impossible now to meet a skateboarder who doesn't know Vans, let alone now. I mean, you can go to any outlet store or I mean, pretty much any mall and see a Vans store,
Yeah.
and people associate Vans with a cultural like identity,
Right.
and it's
Exactly.
all wrapped around like that, like hesh lifestyle, like just shred everything, like whether you're like in the streets or in the water, like just rip everything. and
Yeah.
and
It's. I love Vans. I love Vans for that reason. Like they did a really good job of they to me Vans is very much like Hoyer used to be. They would just go and get into the scene like Hoyer was. Um, so that they're those are two brands that I look up to a lot. They
I
kind
think
of they're pushers, you know.
I think Hoyer's getting back to that now too.
Hope so.
Like
Hope so.
especially with some of the newer releases, like the new Monza.
Mm.
Um, I'm excited for them. I mean, the Skipper. Did you see the
Yeah.
Skipper
So
re-release? I mean,
Skipper was
that
sick.
super sick. And now their glass box. I mean, I think now we should be able to see that from Tag.
Yeah, I hope
I
so
hope.
because yeah, they're really cool. I mean, I like Tagware. I do. But yeah, they need to kind of that's a brand they need to kind of go back to their history a little bit more.
You're starting to see it now too. Like you've seen kind of these brands go on these little weird kind of like paths of like trying to figure out what works in the modern culture, the modern scene, the what the modern
Hmm.
consumer wants. But we never really wanted anything different than what they already had. So you see a
Right.
lot of brands now that are essentially just copy pasting from their archives, and those watches are just performing really well, in terms of
Yeah. I
sales.
think like
Um,
Longines is doing that as well a little bit. Um,
Longines is a great example. Longines is a great brand. I was talking to my friend about it yesterday. He won a watch at work.
really.
And anyway, so I when I sold watches, I sold Longines, and I would push Longines so hard. Because you're not paying for that brand association. Like, when you
Hmm.
look at an $1,100 quartz watch from Tag Heuer, or you can get yourself like a Conquest or like a Hydro Conquest for like $995, an automatic
Yeah.
diver that like will go down, and do anything you want it to,
Hmm.
automatic. And it was a really hard proposition to turn people away from, because you're clearly paying for an identity with Tag.
Yeah.
And so I had earned and I pushed Longines so hard, and every time you sell a watch or you meet some type of sales goal, they would give you like a little like point system. You register the sale, they give you points, and then you can use those points to buy something, right?
Yeah.
On their
Yeah.
store, kind of like a reward system. and
Yeah.
uh and yeah, I bought some cologne from there. I bought a record player, like my first record player, and yeah, it was a fun little way that, and I told them, I was like, like you need to make because they had Longines watches on there, and I was like, you need to make the Longines watches more affordable so we can wear them and like afford them,
Yeah. For sure. For
with
sure.
those
It's a cool brand.
points. It
I
is,
wish the
and
lab did something like that. The lab needs to do something like that where we can like I don't think they you spend 10 years or something at a job. They used to give out watches. Like I bought my first Omega was a Southwestern Bell Omega from like 1975. And it was inscribed on the back. It was like thank you for your 25 years with a
wow.
name. I wish more companies did that today.
Yeah. They're getting away from it, I think. I don't know, but if you look at like culturally too. Like it just, I mean, look at like all the cool brand, like the cool brands that have done that. Like Pizza Hut used to do that, you
Hmm.
know, like you could get the Pizza Hut Explorers or OPs. There's actually one here at a pawn shop. It was a Pizza Hut, or I think it was an Oyster Perpetual or maybe a vintage Datejust or something. Um,
Really,
but legitimately had like the Pizza Hut logo in the bracelet.
really.
Yeah, and then they
What's the
took
Pizza Hut logo? I'm trying to.
it's just like the little Pizza Hut square. Or I'm sorry, Domino's.
Domino's. Okay, I was like, what is the
Yeah,
Pizza Hut
shit.
logo?
Sorry. I literally just
It's
went on a
like
whole
the
tangent.
box thing.
No, no, it's like the yeah. Sorry, so Domino's. But
Yeah,
no, legitimately had like the little Domino's square there on the bracelet, and then
that's
for
cool.
whatever for whatever reason, the pawn shop removed it, and so there's just a huge hole there. And I'm like, dude, you need to fucking keep that
Yeah, why
Domino's
would
little
they
pizza
remove that?
box. I don't. I was just thinking about it wouldn't mean something, and then yeah, on the case back, of course, it's thank you for opening a franchise. I think they did it for like franchisees or something.
Yeah, yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but so cool, and yeah, I mean, it's such a great way to kind of reward your employees. I would love to see
Yeah,
it again. So,
it's great.
as a self-employed contractor, I get myself nice things all the time.
There you
I try
go.
to.
There you go.
Um, I'm curious too about something that I don't think I've ever heard you talk about, but I think you probably should be talking more about is the case structure specifically
Mhm.
for Marin.
Yeah.
Something that stuck out to me like when I was in San Francisco, where, obviously when we first met, what was so unique was the case structure and the case shape and the case form and the way that it integrates to the strap. I had never really seen anything like that. It's like sharp, but it's not, and it's like
Hmm.
rounded, but it's not, and it's like angular, but it's not. And I don't really know. I'm not really good at describing things, obviously, but um, it was a very unique shape that was particularly what stuck out to me the most and
Yeah.
attracted me to the product. How did you get there? Was that something that you designed, or was that something that, obviously like you had sourced or
Yeah. So I designed the case. It's obviously inspired by old, um, skin diver cases. I mean, it's a flat case. It's pretty flat, but it fits my wrist. So, like, it worked as this watch. I mean, it worked as a watch, but the case shape was just, yeah, inspired by old skin divers, and I wanted to keep these. I wanted these crown guards to be pretty bulky. Um, I didn't want someone to, knock it on something, walking past a door, and I wanted it to be kind of like, you know, pro prof or however you say that, Omega.
yeah, Pro Prof. Yeah,
Like that style case. Yeah, I haven't really talked about it much. But
you
like
should.
it's inspired a lot by Bell and Ross. Like our strap, the way the strap fits the case is very much inspired by Bell and Ross. Their straps are really cool, but their watches are too big. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we worked with our manufacturer, Reinventing. The bracelet took a long time because we're trying to get these case lines to come down, and then you're matching a bracelet which kind of has these, or a strap which has these wings. Um, and so the goal was to just keep everything in line. So it had to like kind of flow with your wrist. The line was really important to keep. And a lot of these watches, they just kind of their lugs end, and then it's just bracelet or strap,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
didn't want that to happen. It needed to flow. And so yeah, I worked with Raventa Hennex, and they helped me a lot with the engineering of that, and I think it came out pretty nice. A lot of people comment on that actually. Yeah, I don't talk about that much.
Yeah, you should upload some of the render. That'd be cool for you to do. I mean, here I'm not this is not a marketing pep talk, but I mean some of you talked about sending me over some of the sketches and stuff. Like, I think people
Yeah,
would really be kind of interested to see that type of stuff. Like,
for sure.
because a lot of brands now, not necessarily micro brands, but they kind of hitch their hat on like legacy, right? They talk about, oh, well, we were founded in this year and this date and da 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 da. And obviously, like, micro brands, they don't they don't they don't talk about that as much. There's no
It's true.
legacy, right?
Yeah,
But you're making it, right? You're making it right now. So, sharing
yeah, that's true.
as much of the inside process as you can with with your prospective
Hmm.
customers. It's almost like it's a part of the customer journey that people,
For sure.
don't really get anymore, and we talked about Peter off stream, but Peter
Yeah,
from Jack Mason, like, he has an entire series where he talks. You should go back and watch it, but how he goes through and he shows you the design process from like zero to finished,
I might have seen a couple of these.
and it's so cool. And like,
Yeah,
you know, I think that's that's just it's just such great material. It's just so enjoyable to consume.
yeah, for
I
sure.
think more brands need to take a page out of that book, and because your heritage is now, right? And in the future.
Right.
So
Yeah,
spin
definitely.
it like that.
I'll try to do more of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just my opinion.
Yeah, no, no,
Um,
no. That's good. That's good because like it's, getting feedback is always good.
yeah. I'm sure if you leave a form up on your website, people will be happy to chime in and
Oh
give you
yeah,
all the positive or negative feedback they can.
for sure.
Um,
It's funny running a brand. Um, Talking about feedback. It's funny because you get really good at taking horrible criticism.
is that what you just did? You just took my
It's great.
horrible
No, 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 no,
criticism.
no.
I'm
Yeah,
just
like
I'm
that
just
idea
kidding, man.
sucked.
I'm just
No,
kidding.
no, no. But it just reminded me of like I try not to go on like review websites and like look see what people are saying. Although it's important, like you should like
Definitely.
take what people are saying and like if you want to change your product, change it. You need these changes, change it. Um, but it's funny when I get these people saying like, "Oh, that'd be cool for $200." You know, that'd be great for
Yeah.
$300. I'm like, dude, it costs more to make.
I I thought about
It's
doing
like
like one of those.
movement.
I thought about doing one of those series where, like, have you ever seen the series, especially with particularly at luxury products, where they'll buy like a Birkin bag or whatever, and then they'll cut it open and they'll rip the leather
Yes.
out and they'll do all the stitching and do all that, and then they'll be like, okay, this is the material cost of the product, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then here's how much they have to kind of wiggle in for labor, right? I mean, people need to understand that you're not Seiko. Like, you're not able to scale like Seiko.
No.
Like, I don't know how many watches you're making, but I'm assuming you're not making more than 1,000 watches a year,
No. 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 No.
So,
We
so
started with 500, and that was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I think. 3 years ago. 2021. We kind of launched 500 watches, and we still have a few. Because we're small. I'm a small brand, and so I don't have the marketing or the expertise to push out thousands of watches. So,
sure.
but yeah, a
And
lot of people, most people don't know the cost of running a business, and I think it's an important. I think more people should be talking about it because it would lend some insight to some of these people on these forums and chats and whatever about how much these things actually cost.
I think they've gotten spoiled by brands like Orient, who puts out an
Mm,
in-house movement, Bambino for like $200, or like Seiko. I
yeah,
mean, you can get a Seiko GMT for like 350. I mean, like,
yeah,
it's hard to beat, at scale. Like, you can't
I
put your
know.
product in, and that's the ideology that we need to get away from, where we're saying, oh, well, I'm going to compare it to a $350 Seiko, or like,
Hmm.
Like what? Like we're talking about, a limited production, like, micro brand, and we're
Right.
not talking about something that's producing millions of the same thing, and
I know. Yeah, a lot of
I
people just think, these things cost $50 and we're, you know, pricing them thousands of times more than what it costs, and it's just not true. It's like we're barely making any money on what we
yeah,
sell.
I,
So
th-
that's why
I
it's been so hard to like make the next watch. Honestly, it's just because, you know, lack of resources and time.
do you do you ever see yourself, so something that like I'm curious about is, like you're clearly using like Swiss movements,
Yeah.
a lot of the guys, I guess if you had gotten in the same inner circles that I'm in, they probably would have told you like, look, you can get a Miyota to run just as well as you can a Salida,
Right. Yeah.
um, and so that would have kept the cost down. But not only necessarily, but taking production outside of Switzerland,
Yeah.
because you are producing watches in Switzerland,
Hmm.
albeit through a supplier.
Yeah.
But I mean, the stigma of having a great watch built outside of Switzerland, like it used to be a stigma that like, oh, if it's
Yeah.
Japanese
Hmm.
or something else is a piece of shit. And that's not
Yeah.
the case anymore. Um, like so where was your thought process about like, okay, I have to get it done in Switzerland? Like, why did you choose that path?
Mm.
Was it just that stigma that said, okay, well, people are gonna want a Swiss watch, or
It was first. Um, Definitely. I think a lot of people still like the Swiss made, watch. I think a lot of people still, like the Swiss made on the dial, and it means something to them. And but yeah, definitely, it's starting to turn. And there was a symposium in Hong Kong that actually, when I went there for Dubai Watch Week, there was they talked about this exact topic about how Chinese watches are becoming more popular, and it's not because it's because they can make really really good stuff, and people are making really really nice things out of China. But yeah, it was, we actually went to China first. There was a couple of guys, one person that I think ran Timex or something or worked for Timex, and then another guy that, it's been so long. But I was talking with these people in China, and they told me that nobody builds dive watches anymore. No one wears dive watches. No one, you can't sell this for $1,000. There's no way. They wanted me to make like a Daniel Wellington, cheap watch to sell millions of. And I was like, no, like if that's what I'm going to deal with, I'm going to go to Switzerland. And so I kind of put my feelers out there with a bunch of different people, and the Swiss people were just the most honest, honestly. But I'm not saying they're dishonest in China, but it's like the people that I spoke
sure,
with were just,
like more
um,
supportive of the idea,
yeah,
it
they
seems
were not
like.
supportive of my design when I went to when I was speaking to the people in China. It could be I could have found the wrong people. Um, but yeah, we work with Reinventing, and they've just been amazing, 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 amazing. So and they do cost more. Like they cost a lot of money. It costs a lot to make a Swiss made watch. But the amount of like communication that we have, and um, although I have to be on their time zone most of the times, or most of the some of the meetings I have, it's way past midnight.
Super early. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything else just runs so smooth. So that's really why I stuck with Reinventing, and I will continue to use them, because they're just so amazing, and they're really supportive. And they right now we're working on a watch. We're trying to figure out feasibility, um, and they've been really, really, really open to the different ideas that I have with the build and how many we're going to do. So
Do,
it's a great relationship.
do you ever come at them? Because I've heard two different design sides where you say, look, I'm just going to design a watch uncompromised. Here's what I want. Roventa, deliver. Or you go
That
to
was
them and
this.
say,
That
oh,
was the Marin.
okay, okay.
You should
um,
see the drawings first. It's crazy how similar they are. They
dude,
look the same.
you definitely need to upload those.
Yeah, I
Um,
will. I will after
and
this
and
for sure.
then and then the other, I've heard the other side where you say, hey, I want to design a watch within this budget. Here
Yep.
is kind of a couple things that I have on paper. And then, the manufacturer will come back and say, oh, we have to cut this or cut that or cut this, or like we can't do that, or we have to, use this movement or that.
Hmm.
Like, did you ever find yourself approaching manufacturing like that? Or
Yeah.
like could you ever see yourself kind of going into that direction where you say, hey, look, like we have such a strong demand for the skin divers. $1,000 is a lot of money. It is.
It is.
Um,
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for
it
people to spend.
it is. And ever saying, hey, look, I want something more aggressively priced,
Hmm.
but still, obviously corners have to be cut, but
Hmm.
since you're in charge of this brand, you get to decide what corners to be cut.
Right.
And the ones that compromise on creating a quality product or having quality design or things like that, that would be those corners you decide not to cut. So
Right.
does that ever cross your mind? Or
So I've kind of dealt with both sides. I've dealt with Marin. It was, build this. This is exactly what I want. I want it to be this way, and they did it perfectly. I didn't have any complaints. Actually, we went back and forth on the bezel first because it was shiny. The first bezel we did was a stainless steel polished bezel, and I was like, no, this needs to be matte. Like people need to be able to see this when it's super sunny out here in Santa Fe. Um, with Alterum, we went back and forth a little bit because it costs more to make. It costs a lot more to make than the Marin, and we had to go back and forth on um, the bracelet a little bit. We did back and forth on the rubber strap, which we never offered because it was just didn't turn out for the first one. It didn't turn out very well. Like the construction was just not right, and I went back and forth with them a couple times on what we can do, and they were like, well, it's going to cost this much, it's going to be an insane amount to do this. And then I actually went to before I spoke with Reinventing about Alterum, I went to Vaucher, if you've ever heard of Vaucher.
I have,
um,
yeah.
and they build, you know they're building like Richard Mill watches over there. They're doing some crazy stuff, and you pay for it. But yeah, I talked to them a little bit, but Reinventing was very open with what we could do and what we couldn't, and they actually ate some of the costs too, just like I did. So
Wow.
they were like, you know what, we'll take a loss because this project is important to you and it's important to us, and um, so they're just an amazing manufacturer. So I know they don't want to be known, but they're known.
Yeah, I mean
He was up
they're
there. Jerome was up there with me in Hong Kong. So Jerome's a good guy. Shout out to Jerome.
nice. Yeah, yeah, they're really known for what they do.
Hmm.
There are other brands out there that are essentially Swiss made Chinese brands. I'm sure you probably know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
But and they go around and they market stuff as they ship it to Switzerland. They produce it all in China. They ship it to Switzerland. Final assembly takes place in Switzerland, and they call it a Swiss product. That's not what
yeah.
Roventa is doing.
No, to be fair, I mean we make stuff in Hong Kong. Like
Yeah,
there's
there's nothing
some
wrong with
things.
that.
Every watch brand does it, but our goal is not to. We're not saying we are Swiss made. That's
Sure.
this is why you buy our watch. Like you buy our watch
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you're built for the journey. That's more important to me than the Swiss made mark. But yeah, we'll continue to go with Reinventing for as long as it takes.
Yeah, and I'm curious too. So you talk about, building watches for the journey, and you just said like I can't wait to see some of these aged. Have you tried like doing any of the durability testing? Like I'm curious. Or like like I think there's ways that you can advanced age
Oh yeah.
them
Oh yeah.
too.
So we did a special series called the Odyssey series, and I don't know if you've clicked on that or read the story. Um, there were 10 watches found in Mexico. This is the story. Okay, this is all fake. There were 10 watches found in Mexico in this dive shop that was closing down. And I go to Mexico a lot with my buddies. And so I was like, we need to make this story about these dive watches that were found that, there's not a lot of history on them, but they were part of a program um, uh, where, they didn't really know the program details. They thought it was, they were testing underwater breathing apparatus for aqualung, or they were doing something with recording devices, 80 feet under the water. So that's the story of this. It's kind of fake, you know. I just wanted to
Fictional.
write something cool, something
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it was inspired by Damien Hirst, his Treasures of the Lost World or something like that. I'm trying
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get the
yeah, something like
world
that.
name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really cool idea. The artwork was really weird. He could have made something really, really amazing, like cool coins and whatever found at the bottom of the world or bottom of the ocean. And so it's kind of playing on that idea with the dive watches. And I aged them. You know, I aged the dials. I scratched up the cases and beat them up a little bit. And so yeah, I have messed around with kind of faux aging, and it was fun and it looks cool. So that was the Odyssey series that we did. But
How
yeah, the
many?
story's pretty fun.
And you said you only did like 10? Did I understand that correctly?
We did
Oh,
10. We have one more that's going to come out soon. That's kind of gives a little more detail about what they were doing at the bottom of the ocean. So yeah, we're going to come up with that soon. Still
that
writing and getting it finalized, but we have the watch and it's really cool. Really, really cool.
that's super cool.
It's a fun story, man. It's like you can't always, for brands like us, we kind of have to fake it sometimes. We don't have hundreds years of watch history. So I think doing things like this and coming up with fun stories that people can be a part of, I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we just talked about how, your legacy is now, right?
Yeah.
And 20, 30, 40 years from now, like, they'll be talking about the things that you did. Uh, that will be your legacy, like the founding days, right? The founding
Yeah.
father. Um, and no, I haven't heard about that. I haven't seen that. Um, I am ashamed to say I need to pay more attention. So,
It was
uh,
a quick story that we did, and there were only 10 watches, but you should give it a read. It's pretty cool, and
I
I had a
will.
lot of fun writing it. And I'm trying to write more. Just as an adult, I'm trying to just put my thoughts down on paper, and this was a fun way to kind of create this story where these watches were found in this old dive shop. And I think that's, I mean, they sold out like crazy. I mean, it was quick. There's only 10. We didn't
Yeah.
make 100 of them or anything, but so it was a lot of fun. It's cool.
What
And then
was
this other one that's coming out is going to be really cool too, kind of finish off the story.
We'll have to go back and check. What was some of the things that you did to expedite the aging process?
Baking,
Okay.
bake the dials in an oven. Um, there's like a couple of, see, I don't know what I'm doing really.
That's
I'm just
okay. We
trying
don't.
different shit.
Yeah, yeah, that's all
I'm
right.
just trying to see what works. Like I put the watches in a bag of rocks, just shook them around, see what would happen. I use different paints and paint removers and different chemicals to kind of age the dials a little bit more. That was about it. Just like kind of, and I took the bezels out. We did the steel bezels on these Odysseys, and so we did a steel bezel with an orange seconds hand, which looks really really cool on the standard. And it just trashed them as much best I could without like kind of removing too much. The steel bezels look good when they're all beat up, so it looks pretty cool.
Steel ages. Like awesome.
I know it's great.
It yeah, I just love the way it looks.
Yeah. So the
There's a lot of
Odyssey
it.
project was cool. You should, yeah, definitely check it out. And I could send you like either photos, or I could send you the one that I have because I kept one. Um, so you could take a look at that and just kind of get your opinion. And the one that I have, the bezel doesn't click. It's
Hmm.
actually like it just slides.
Yeah, yeah, I'd be happy to get hands on with some of that stuff.
Yeah,
Um so yeah, yeah, I mean I have obviously told you like I'd love to get some of the watches in for content. To help how I can.
for sure.
What's next for the brand? So, um, I
Hmm.
guess we could start with Marin. What do you plan for the future? I mean, obviously you said you're planning a couple things and
Hmm.
you're trying to get some ideas out, but funding is difficult. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's for the
what's
project
next?
we're working on right now with Marin. We're working on the Fieldmaster. It's been ongoing for a while. We released when we launched the Skin Diver. I actually put a picture of the Fieldmaster on Hodinky as well. I took it off our Instagram because people kept asking me about it, and I was getting annoyed because it's such a slow project. Like I'm not annoyed that
Yeah.
people are asking me about it. I know it's going to be really awesome, and I'm very very excited for it. But it's a project that's taken a long time because we're creating a module on top of the movement, and so we're working with Salida to see if this is even possible. And so we're still going back and forth on what we can do and what we can't do. But yeah, so the Field Master's next. We're still a ways from it. I'm hoping in the next year and a half we can have Field Master sales. Um, so that's the next thing. I've got a bunch of watch designs for Marin. Um, I have a quartz watch that I want to do. I think quartz is cool. Uh, yeah, so I got a bunch of different. I got a tide indicator watch. That's pretty cool. And for Alterum, we've got a couple different variations of the world timer we're coming out with. Right now, we've got the gold PVD and we have the black PVD. The one that I have, the original, sold out, so we're not selling any more of those. We only made 100. We're doing 100 gold, 100 black, and then we've got two more watches that'll come out later on in the year. Um, but I've got another design for Alterum that I'm working on, but it's again it's taking just it just takes time to come out with these things. This one's a time only watch, uh, so updated bracelet. It's going to come with a integrated bracelet, kind of the same sort of construction as the world timer, but thinner and more elegant. So yeah, that's we're just working on a couple different things.
Yeah, most people don't understand too, because the time that you come up with like a proof of concept and then start getting doing pulse checks to see if it's possible, if you could execute it, how much it'll cost, like lead time. I mean, you're years out
Yeah,
usually, and people don't understand that, and now you see a lot of brands just painting a dial and then re-releasing it and then calling it a new release. Um,
it's funny you
but
mentioned that because that was my biggest like qualm with the watch industry. They're like, these brands will come out with a different dial color and they'll be like, yeah, this is completely different. And it's like,
yeah,
what?
doing something new.
What? It's red. It's all
Yeah, yeah.
same watch.
Um, I know I pulled up the Fieldmaster here
Yeah.
and this thing is badass. And I'm assuming
Thanks.
it's kind of inspired by the Flightmaster. Is that kind of
Yes. Very
yeah.
much so. Flightmaster inspired. It's got the Flightmaster colors on there, the red, blue, and yellow. And we're doing we the plan is to do three models or three variations. 300 each. That's what we're working on right now, is trying to lower our quantity and just do 100 each, because they're not going to be cheap. And that's what we're, uh, I'm a little nervous about how much it's going to be. um, because I want to be able for people like me to afford it. Like I don't make a lot of money, and I want people to wear my watches. That's the goal. So yeah, we're just working with Reinventing on trying to get a quote and get all the back end stuff engineered and figured out. So
Do you ever see yourself kind of like stripping down, kind of because now that you have your I will call it a premium product. Do you ever see yourself kind of scaling back and doing something more? I don't know if mass market is the right word to use,
yeah,
but more obtainable.
yeah, definitely. That's what we. So before we started the Fieldmaster, I wanted to do a quartz model, and that would be kind of our sub 850 model. You know, something under $850. That's the goal. So, but yeah, I definitely see us doing something like that. It's just, we're still young and still getting our feet on the ground and trying to figure out exactly where we fit.
Yeah, no, this is this is badass. So I love it.
Thanks.
So
It's
uh,
cool.
I think it's weird timing too, considering now if you look at what Omega just released. I mean, we're talking now in January of 2025, but they just re-released the Flightmaster, and I
It's a
wasn't a fan
badass
of
watch, though. It's cool.
it. It is. I like vintage Omega. I feel like they fuck it up when they kind of do re-release. I mean, especially considering
Yeah.
the new one, like it's so far away from the original Flightmaster
Yeah, it
uh,
is.
that it just I don't know, it just gets lost for me. So
Yeah, I think it's a cool piece of design. Um, very legible. I think it's cool. I like the design of it. But yeah, I don't know what movement they use in that. Not sure
they
if
use
it's
it
an in-house
in-house.
movement.
Yeah,
Okay.
in-house. Yeah.
But I've heard it's really thick. And so it's like, make it thinner. It's a chronograph. It's a
Yeah.
flight master. Make it 50 meters. No one needs to go diving with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like if you look at like going from the 50s to the 60s to the 70s, like they were using the 861 calibers. Well,
Yeah.
in the 50s they didn't exist, but they were using Lamania stuff, and then they went into the 321, and then they went into the 861, and yada yada yada. But anyways, back in the day, they were using a lot of manual winding movements, which
Hmm.
were kind of now you don't see a lot of brands, especially in chronographs, doing manual winding chronographs anymore. And they're kind of like I've kind of coined them as kind of the V12 of the chronograph,
Okay, that
like
makes sense.
you just don't see a lot of V12 like
Right.
cars anymore. Like maybe like a twin turbo V8 or so, in some of the,
Yeah.
like crazy car, but no, and now because they started, scaling up and using going automatic, like the market has demanded that they go automatic, and now you see them definitely pushing up the case size
Hmm.
and thickness, and Omega's a weird brand because everything they do is in house, right?
Right.
And yeah, what they did was I went at length and kind of went on a rant about this, but they essentially took one of their core they took one of their existing movements and just popped a little module on top of it. And
Yeah.
that's what brands used to do back in the day when they wanted to make chronographs.
Yeah. Yeah.
They took a base movement, put a module on top, and then released a chronograph.
Yeah.
Um, and and now you see brands that are doing. Zenith got credit for the fully integrated chronograph without a module, but it definitely adds to the bulkiness of the watch, and yeah, it's a weird release to me, and I mean I think it's like it's a thick one. It's like I think it's like 14, 15, 16 millimeters thick, and
Holy cow. Really?
it's yeah, it's up there if I remember correctly.
Damn.
Um, but
Yeah, our
I
goal is
don't.
to keep it under, like, if we can keep the Fieldmaster under 14. 14 is huge. 13's big.
It
Like
is.
if we can keep it at 13 or under, or, however we can kind of cut space and make it thin, we're gonna do that. Because that's the goal. Like with both of these brands that I have, I want them to be thinner. I want them to hug the wrist better, and um, thin is cool. Thin watches are cool. I mean, you don't need a big chunk of steel on your wrist. So, like the skin diver is 11.5 millimeters. The Alterum is 10. So if we can go lower, that'd be great.
Do you ever see yourself kind of having fun with materials? I know right now, you're using steel.
Hmm.
You're doing PVD bezels. Uh, and even you talked about some of the Alterums where you did the gold PVD. Do you ever
Yeah.
see yourself experimenting with some of the more commonly used materials you see now, titanium,
Yeah.
ceramic,
Hmm.
carbon fiber? I mean, those are all kind of pushing the envelope now, and you see
Yeah. I
brands
would
speak.
love to do like a carbon fiber Marin. That'd be cool. That'd be awesome. And then I'm actually looking at doing some really high end materials for Alterum, which is different, like some of the precious metals. But that's kind of way out there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that because it's so expensive. Um, yeah, I would love to do uh, like a forged carbon fiber case for the Marin. I think it'd be awesome. Titanium would
That'd
be
be
cool.
badass.
Um, and you know what? I haven't really done much research into titanium. I don't have anything that's titanium. And so maybe I should get something that's titanium and just kind of play around with the material a little bit before we kind of dive into it. But the carbon fiber thing is really cool.
I've heard. I mean, I'm not into the manufacturing side, but I've heard it is relatively easy to transition from steel to manufacturing, from steel to
Mm.
titanium. Because from my understanding, you can use the same type of CNC machinings,
Oh, really?
machines, and then the only thing is, from my understanding, it's just harder to get the same finish.
Yeah.
So
You
I
could do
could be
like a
wrong.
matte finish, like a lot of titanium cases are.
Just
Too cool
dude,
matte finish.
blast it with some beads and be done with it.
Dude, I
Um,
mean, I want to do a bead blasted Marin case. I want to take one and bead blast it like we did the Alterum. The Alterum is a bead blasted glass bead blasted case, and it needed to look like the Leica case that they made. It needed to look like the Apple keyboard or the Apple computer, um, aluminum. That was the goal. And so yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to do like a bead blasted titanium watch case for Marin.
that'd
Makes
be
sense.
awesome. Yeah, I would love to see that. I don't want to take any more of your time here. We are running up on almost a feature film here, almost an hour, an hour
Nice.
and 20 minutes. We've been doing this thing where we've been kind of turning our platform over. So I know we talked about a lot. We talked about the early days, kind of up until now, the future of the brand, the things that you hope to do.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything that you feel like we didn't cover, that maybe we didn't talk about? If so, now is the chance, or forever hold your peace.
No, I don't think so. I think maybe doing a podcast later. And I've
Yeah,
I've talked to Wesley with Standard H about this topic of cost, money. I'd love to do a podcast with a bunch of people, just talk about like what it costs to do things, because more people need to know. I think that's what's on my mind nowadays is like, I get these Instagram messages, and I go on Reddit sometimes, which is a mistake. And people are like, your watch looks cool, but I'm not going to pay 300, I wouldn't pay over $300 for it. It's like, people need to understand how much it costs to start a brand, first of all, and then to, make a watch, which is super expensive. So I think doing a podcast like that in the future could be cool. But no, I don't think we missed anything. I think we covered most of it. We can do this again sometime soon.
yeah. We definitely try to follow up. Obviously, we'll be in communication the whole time. But
Yeah.
final question too is where do you see your brands in the next decade?
Hmm. Dude, it's so hard to think about like 10 years, maybe like 3 years. In 3 years, maybe I see Marin coming out with the Fieldmaster eventually.
I
Um,
mean, I'm sure you have. Okay, well, maybe we can spend it a little easier. Maybe you have some like a bucket list of accomplishments that you know might be a little bit more easier
I'd
to
like,
obtain.
yeah, for Marin, I'd like to get more into the sports scene. Get people, get it on someone's wrist that kind of exemplifies the brand, or speaks the brand language, and that's a goal of mine for Marin. Um, and to build really cool tool watches to just improve on what we've built already. Do more shows. I want to do more shows. Uh, I'd like to do some private events with people, but hasn't really the opportunity hasn't really come up. I think I had this idea of doing a GMT. Um, well, we were going to do the Fieldmaster, but doing this launch in a hangar, in an airplane hangar somewhere, which would be cool. Like you go look at a bunch of planes and then get to play with a watch, and but that's like having ideas like that is they're fun. Just doing some fun stuff. Getting more into talking to people. I need to talk to more people. I'm pretty shut out of everything here.
Yeah.
There's no watch scene in Santa Fe. I have two friends that are like watch buddies, and we talk about watches, and that's it. Like I only have two friends. Everyone else does like construction and everything else. But for Alterum is to work on the next model. Try to find an investor really. I'd like to find someone that could like help me. It's like an investor partner kind of deal. Um, so I'm looking for that, but also just to come up with some really cool, thin, minimalist pieces. I see this brand being, you know, kind of. I don't want to get into it. Whatever, we can talk about it later. It's a long story, but I see a bright future for Alterum, and so trying to get into um, different design magazines and different, kind of more design oriented stuff that's the goal for Alterum, is to be more in that zone. Um, yeah, kind of do the resins thing. There, I met with Benoit. I think is his name. Benoit. Mentience Benoit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the founder. Yeah.
I met him in Hong Kong, and he's first of all he's huge. He's tall. I'm a short dude, and like I was like, dude, you do not look this tall online. But anyway, it was really cool to meet him and to talk watch just a little bit with him. So, but like Resonance is doing something really, really cool. I can see Alterum kind of getting into that uh, kind of design zone, if you will. They're not really, I mean, they're a huge watch brand. They're
Yeah.
known, but like they don't make much. They don't
No.
make many watches a year, and they're just incredible. And so, low numbers, really high quality.
Yeah. Yeah, Resonance is an amazing brand, and it's a watch I've been trying to bring into the collection at some point, but obviously affordability is
They're like,
something
I
that's
think
they're
the one that I
not.
picked up in Geneva was like $18,000. It was like their
Yeah,
Type 1 or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but
the oil filled.
yeah. Yeah, it was the oil filled one. And I was
Yeah.
like, damn, like it's so cool.
Yeah, it almost looks like an analog watch, like a digital
Yeah.
watch, but it's not,
Yeah, it's
especially
cool.
when you
It's
see them in
badass.
real. Yeah. Yeah, I
But
like
that's it,
the type 3, and
Yeah,
I almost picked up a type 3. I just waiting for the right time. I usually buy watches when I get a good deal on them, and then I'll
yeah,
plunge. And uh but no, we'll definitely have to check back with you
for sure.
and see, how things are going. I definitely want to, kind of help make that video that we talked about, just understanding uh you know I don't we talked about it. I talked about that series, but I don't know how
Yeah.
much I'll do it. But I mean, people definitely do need to understand that, when people aren't micro brands aren't able to scale. Like you're not
Hmm.
able to cut the same corners, you don't have the same type of money. You can't buy in the same quantities that Seiko can buy in or produce in the same quantities that Seiko can produce in. Or, I mean, just people
Right.
have these unrealistic expectations from these micro brands. And, and I have a hard time understanding that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's weird. It's a weird thing. Uh,
Yeah.
but I
But
also
then I get
understand.
pissed off at things that are expensive. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, what? It costs that much? That shirt costs that much? That's ridiculous.
Have you ever looked at
I do the same thing.
have you looked at grills recently? Like grills
No,
are, oh my God, grills are like up there in price. Like,
really.
um, yeah, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah,
yeah. I
that's a
mean, I
conversation to have. That's another podcast that would be interesting. Is like, how we determine like the psychology of cost.
it would be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
But
I
yeah,
want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for spending so much
absolutely.
time with us. I am hang out for a little bit. I am going to link every all your projects. Gonna link the Marin website. Gonna link the Alterum website.
Hmm.
Everybody, Justin, as you can tell, is passionate about what he's doing, and I'm definitely humbled that you came on and glad to have spent some more time with you, just you and I, and not at a crazy watch festival. So
Yeah,
and I'll definitely be keeping my eyes on your projects and anything that I think I can do to support projects. I think you know that. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. It's nice to catch up again after
yeah,
a year that we haven't really chatted in a long time, and so
yeah,
it's nice to come on. It's nice to be on. This is my first podcast,
that is epic for
so
you to come on
I
my
don't do
podcast.
the I don't do the rounds or I don't do any of that stuff. So I'm kind of hidden away in the desert.
You should do
I
this
know
more.
I
I
need
mean, this
to.
is a part of the getting out there, right? People, these are your products, these are your children, right? And,
Yeah,
and
I
your
know.
your your products are an extension of you,
Yep.
and the more that you have, dialogues like this, or put yourself out there and answer these questions, or help people understand more about the brands, uh, it's just gonna translate to the back end. You may have
Yeah,
more supporters or more purchasers, or it just all kind of feeds the same funnel. So,
definitely. For sure. I'll try to do more.
all right. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will see you very soon.
Thanks, man.
All right.